Primal Wellness Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Primal Wellness Podcast. My name is Jess Munemini. I'm a professional athlete, a health coach, and the founder of Primal Wellness, where we blend ancestral wisdom with modern science to help you live stronger, longer, and with more intention. So the idea is that each week we sit down with leading experts, doctors, and thinkers in the world of functional health, fitness, and longevity. We want to unpack what really works for building a body and a mind that can ultimately go the distance. So, whether you're here to optimize your performance, to rebalance your hormones, or simply to age with more vitality, you are in the right place. So, let's dive in. My guest today is Achmat Richards. He is a seasoned bodybuilder turned coach, someone who navigates one of the most insular arenas of sport and brings science, experimentation, and real-world results into view. We're going to unpack the myths, the real protocols behind physique, the disciplined diet and training, and what that means if you're not chasing a pro stage, but if you simply want to maybe live your strongest, healthiest self. So Achmat, thank you so much for joining us. It's really cool to have you here today. And I want to jump right into starting at the beginning with you in terms of what got you into bodybuilding.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate this. And look, I come from a sporting background. I played cricket and hockey provincially, and I was always in the gym. I was always one of the fittest guys on the team, and so on. Yeah, like I enjoyed the gym and so on. And then I was in my grade 11 year. That's when I started spending a little bit more time on my fitness, and then started going onto the weight floor. All I really used to do was just like do some bicep curls and do some bench press here and there, and then just mainly the stuff that I used to work on for sport, like sport specific training and stuff like that. And then I met this guy in the gym. He was a sales consultant at the time, or sales manager at Virgin Active. He was pretty big and so on, and I approached him. I was like, "Hey, look, tell me about this. Like, how are you training and stuff?" And he said to me, "Look, you have some good genetics. Have you ever thought about doing bodybuilding?" And so on. I'm like, "No, I haven't. Never. At that time, I didn't really know much about bodybuilding. All I knew was Arnold Schwarzenegger was the guy.
Yeah.
He was the one that everyone looked up to." He said to me, "Look, you would like to train with me," or he doesn't mind me training with him and so on. But for the first month or so, he said to me, "Look, I'm going to give you a diet, and I'm just going to give you a home workout, just a couple of stuff to do at home." And he said, "All you're going to do at home is do push-ups, pull-ups, leg raises, crunches, and just follow your diet, just follow the eating plan, and then you come see me in a month's time, and then I can see if you're serious or not, then we can take it from there." And I did that. And when I went back to him after a month, he was surprised. I came back, and the way I looked, like just transforming my body, like doing push-ups, pull-ups, and the leg raise and the core work. And I was still playing sport as well. So I was pretty skinny, but also like I put a little bit of muscle on. I was leaner. I looked leaner. And he was like, "Wow, this is you actually do have really good genetics or good build for bodybuilding." And that time I knew nothing what he was talking about. I was like, "No, look, I don't think I'll ever do that." And I continued training like that and so on while playing sport and so on. A lot of the people, I just started growing more and more and more. My breakout, my growth spurt really hit me was in my first year of university, because all I used to do was eat, sleep, study, and then train. And I just started growing like crazy, especially in the off season of sport. So in winter I played hockey, but it wasn't as much as cricket. As cricket's all day, you play all day, you play in the sun, you're on your feet most of the time. So I grew a lot when I was doing less cardio activity, say so. And everyone was like, what are you doing? Like, I just like exploded. And I was like, I wasn't even really trying like to do that. I was just doing what I was told, was said, follow this plan, and I did that. And from there, everyone was like, "Oh, why don't you do bodybuilding? Why don't you do bodybuilding?" My best friends were like saying to me, "Hey, wanting to do bodybuilding and stuff. And I said, no ways, I'll never do that. I'll never stand up there in that small underpants. And so I was like, they all laughed. And then, yeah, fast forward from there was just 3 years. That's when I decided I'm going to move to Cape Town. I finished my studies in the University of the Free State. And then I moved to Cape Town before I moved to Cape Town, sorry, was playing cricket, and I was like, well, I need to do something in the meantime. And I was like, well, I'm always in the gym and so on, so I might as well study personal training, do this personal training course, whatever. And I studied my personal training course through HFPA's, the Health and Fitness Professionals Association. And then I decided, look, I want to move up to Cape Town. I always wanted to be in Cape Town, I always wanted to live in Cape Town, always came here on holiday. And the place just, it drew my energy. I felt good here, and it called my name. And it's like I was supposed to come and study here, but those plans fell through. And then I came here, went straight into the gym. I was still going to decide. I was trying to continue playing cricket and so on, but moving into personal training, the peak times was when most of the clubs were practicing, having the training sessions. I was like, it's not going to work, because now when I'm supposed to be making my money, I'm supposed to be playing cricket or training, and then on the weekends, I was like, am I going to spend 5 days in the gym? Then Saturday and Sunday, I'm going to be spending in the sun. Am I really going to do that? And I was like, that's where it started falling away. And I started spending more time in the gym. And then I met the guy's name is Lloyd Naker. He is actually the owner of the gym where I'm currently based now, where I do one-on-one training. I met him. He was into the fitness scene and into bodybuilding and so on. And I was like, hey, look, I'm keen on doing this thing and so on, but nothing was set in stone. And then I started going to watching bodybuilding shows and sitting in the crowd there. I was like, you know what? I can actually do this thing, huh? Like, I looked at these guys and I was like, well, I could stand up there and I could do really well. In my mind, I was like, oh, I'll blow these guys away. I could stand there the way I am now. And just to make that story short, that was far from the reality. Now, after seeing a few shows, I think it was at 2 shows, I decided, well, look, I'm gonna try this thing. And there was a show like 5 weeks away, and jumped on a prep, kind of like a crash prep and so on. And had a few people helping me and so on. But yeah, I did my first show, and like I said, like I was blown out of the water. I didn't place anywhere. I got my ass handed to me properly. So I was like, you know what? I can't go out like this. Like, I'm the type of person is like, it's either you do something properly or you don't do it at all. I was like, well, I did 5 weeks where I am now, and I got here. I didn't get the result I was looking for. I'm like, I'm gonna go again. And like, I enjoyed the feeling up there on stage, even though I didn't know what I was doing. They were calling poses out, and I was doing my own thing. I was like, no, man, I can't go out like this. I've got to redeem myself here. And then there was another show about 8 weeks after that, and I just continued the diet, continued training, prepping for the show, and then got up there again, and then I won that show.
Wow.
The transformation was like, people was like, what did you do? Like, from the time we saw you the first time to now, it's like a completely different person.
So you touched on quite a few things there, which I want to try and remember to go back to. And so one of the interesting things that you spoke about right at the beginning was how much your body was able to grow when you weren't doing as much cardio. And obviously, in the bodybuilding space, that's something that is known, right? So like, you guys will do your incline walking, but you're not wanting to burn through too much muscle. And so you're limiting the amount of cardio in order to grow. But certainly outside of the bodybuilding space, I think there's a lot of, whether you're in the regular athletic space, in my case, it's the fight space, we do a lot of cardio. And so it's sometimes difficult, especially in a weight cut, to hold on to all your muscle. But then obviously just your regular gym goers, especially women, they tend to kind of end up in the cardio machine side of things, and then kind of complain that they're not able to maintain that toned look, which is essentially maintaining muscle. So I'm just curious, just before we move on to the bodybuilding stuff, do you want to maybe just speak a little bit about the balance, between shedding fat and building muscle when it comes to cardio?
Yeah, so cardio is basically a tool. It's like, yes, you're burning expenditure that you're putting out, and that shouldn't be the main driver of fat loss. The main driver of fat loss is going to be your deficit in your diet. That's going to be the main thing. Yes, cardio can be a tool if food is getting a little bit too low and you're really struggling to adhere to your plan, to adhere to the amount of food you you should be eating. The balance where it comes in, there is a happy medium, but the main thing, like especially with I don't want to go into a bodybuilding setting now, but like just for general population, it's like um, you want to find a happy medium between your fitness and the way you look, the visuals. So there's a happy medium between there. So just finding something you enjoy that you do output on, and then
Mm.
obviously being consistent with that. So, like overdoing it, yes, you can see that. You start seeing it. The signs will be there. You'll be fatigued, even from on a general population standpoint. Like fatigue will be crazy high. You you'll just feel out of balance, and that's where weight loss can be stalled as well, because your fatigue is that high. You're stressing your body out, so
Yeah.
it could be masking your weight loss if it makes sense. Because if cortisol goes up, because if you're stressing, your body's under stress, and your body's fatigued, your cortisol levels are going to go up, and that means your body's going to hold on to a lot more water, because all your hormones are going to go
Mm.
out of
Mm.
range, and that's what's basically going to happen when it comes to cardio. So as I say, for general population, I would say like just find the happy medium, but the main thing is where you should be focusing on, if your goal is fat loss, is focusing on the deficit, and then from there adding on to the cardio side of things.
That makes sense. So then jumping into your bodybuilding initial transition, right? So, you do your first competition, it's a complete dud, you don't place, you don't know what's going on. And then you said it was only like 8 weeks later, and then you managed to come first. So what were the big shifts what shifted in those 8 weeks? I know you said you just kind of carried on with the plan, but what were the things that you had to put in place to go from zero to hero essentially in those 8 weeks?
Like I said, I had a few people helping me. After the first show, I eliminated at least 3 of them, and I had one person help me. So there was less cooks in the kitchen. The consistency thing was probably the main thing, because like
Yeah.
I was already in a good position um, doing the first show. Because like I said, I was pretty lean. I didn't have as much muscle as the other guys, but like I said, I was pretty lean. But I had like good body parts. Like I had good arms. My genetic standpoints were standing out, so like my
Mm-mm.
arms were there. Other points, like I would say that back then I had maybe my back. But other than that, like in those 8 weeks, really, I just continued the consistency, and I just trained harder. To be honest with you, it was like I had this fire in me. I was like, I have to redeem myself.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
way I'm gonna go out here. And then obviously, then I started doing bodybuilding specific stuff, and that meaning posing. Like I started learning how to pose properly. Like I said to you, like they were calling poses out in my first show, and I was doing my own thing. I knew nothing about quarter turns. I was doing my own thing, and I didn't know how to place my body in certain poses. And those are the things I did in the second, like in that 8 weeks. I did those things, because those are like the first things that people don't realize, that that's actually what you're doing up there. Is you're actually
Yeah.
posing. You're not going to get up there and lift a weight. You're going to stand up there and present. So if you can't present what you have,
Yeah. But what I love about what you're saying, you mentioned two things and you kind of glossed over them like they're not that important. But when I'm thinking about general population, and you mentioned things like, eliminating how many cooks you have in the kitchen and consistency or sticking with the plan. I think if we take this lesson to general population and to general people who are trying to get into shape and to lose weight, the two things I think that they tend to do or fall short on is the first thing is they take advice from everyone instead of just trusting one coach. So you have your one coach, but then, your friend is training with somebody else, or you're reading something on Google or ChatGPT, and then you start to, get overwhelmed by the amount of information. And then also just not sticking through with the plan. So the consistency of showing up every day over time always compounds, but a lot of people tend to kind of fall off before they reach that mark, right?
100%, 100%. That's true. Look, like the consistency part was, like I said, like yeah, you mentioned, is the most important part, and yeah, just that perseverance. Like I said, I can't remember, like back then. Like I still go through these moments now, so I probably did have them then. Like I don't think everything went smoothly in that 8 weeks, but it was just that I wanted this thing so badly. Like there was no way I was going to give up. I'm sure pretty sure there was moments where I was challenged, but the will for me wanting to redeem myself was more than me wanting to give up.
Hmm.
Take it to a general population standpoint, it's like if you're not seeing what you're doing yet, it's just maybe needs time. Everything takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. Like I said, 8 weeks sounds a little, but it's actually a lot. Especially if you are nailing things 24/7. You are on the ball, you're not missing a beat. 8 weeks is a long time. And especially, yeah, like I said, like when we'll probably get into that discussion of how regimented bodybuilders are.
Yeah. Well, that's what I want to ask you next. That's what I want to ask you next, because you're saying, you didn't miss a beat, or for general population, if they don't miss a beat. Now, obviously, there is this idea around bodybuilding that is, if you've ever known a bodybuilder, you'll know that, they're always carrying their buckies of food with them, and they're never eating, they're very specific about what they eat and when they eat it. And it's similar, I think, to the fight space, except the fight space is it's very specific about a particular time when you really need to focus in terms of cutting weight. Whereas with bodybuilding, obviously there's phases of growth and then cutting down. So take us through what does it kind of an average, I don't know, cycle or training camp, if you will, for a bodybuilder look like in terms of what you're mentioning, how regimented everything is? What does it look like for people that don't know? Because a lot of the time you just see the pretty pictures on Instagram, right? That's all we see is the stage pictures. But what does it actually feel like to go through it?
So like to go through it, to answer the question first, is like, yes, it's basically like setting up habits. That's what it comes down to. It's the habitual part of things. I think it's also just simplicity. That's why you see bodybuilders walking around with buckies and so on. Like the phases that you go through, you have to have a mental toughness about it, because it can be challenging at points where you really have to dig deep, both off season and pre-contest. I would argue that we can argue the fact that off season is harder than prep or pre-contest, just for the fact that sometimes you really have to force food in, even though like your body doesn't want to take food in anymore. But yeah, like those phases, like now, like the phases are getting broken up into so many different subsections and so on. Like an off season can include like a growth phase. Off season can entail a holding phase, or it can even entail a fat loss phase, even in the off season. If you may be gaining a little bit too much body fat in your off season, then you need to pull back. The main goal is obviously to grow muscle, and you don't want to get sloppy. The sloppier you get in the off season, the harder it is going to be for training. Sleep's not going to be great. Your health metrics are going to go out the window. Then yeah, pre-contest, it's pretty straightforward. Pre-contest is basically the reveal. That's the biggest thing, is which a lot of athletes don't realize, is that you're not going to be growing in your contest prep. The main goal is just getting as lean as you can and holding as much muscle tissue as possible. So that's basically just trimming off all the fat. Like I said, the whole goal is to reveal what you've done in your off season.
So you're saying that essentially off season is your growth phase. So that's where I'm assuming, and you can correct me, but I'm assuming you're eating at a calorie surplus, you're lifting heavy weights, so you're wanting to, and you're resting as much as possible, you're wanting to get as big as possible. Is that what you're saying? As you lead up towards a competition, then your focus is going to be on reducing calories and changing the way you lift weights. Tell me, explain it to me like I've never been around a bodybuilder before, so I can understand.
Yeah, like you say, like your off season is basically still like basically the pre-contest prep. It's basically, that's what it is. That's where everything shines out. That's where everything needs to be done, because like I mentioned, like yes, the goal is to get as big as possible, but to limit the body fat. Body fat's gonna be a thing it's gonna come along when you're in a calorie surplus, so you have to accept that. But you want to try and mitigate that as much as possible. So that's why watching your visuals and your weight, obviously those things go hand in hand. The trends of how you're looking, how the body's, what the weight's saying, and then how it's responding. Then yeah, you're still lifting heavy weights. You lift it. You can lift heavier in off season, because yeah, you have more fuel, you have more energy, higher body fat. Your joints are more protected, so you can lift heavier. Not to say that you're not going to lift heavy in your pre-contest, because that is also the main thing that you need to do carrying through into the contest prep, is maintaining your heavy lifts, because that's what maintains muscle tissue. So the training doesn't really change much at all from a off-season setting to a contest prep setting. It doesn't change much, because what grew muscle is going to hold is what's going to hold the muscle. The only thing we're going to be changing up in contest prep is actually resting more, because the body needs to recover. The body's already under stress from diet, so we need to mitigate that. The fatigue setting, like I mentioned, like if cortisol goes up, like it could skew your visuals, so you could be making decisions that's unnecessary coming from a coach's point of view.
Okay, so now we have to talk about the big question, which anybody that speaks to somebody in the bodybuilding space wants to ultimately know, is that there is this big stigma around steroid abuse or lots of supplements. So what is your response to that assumption that bodybuilding is full of steroids? Is that the case? Is there a shift in that? What do you see as possible health implications for somebody going down that journey?
My answer to the question is yes and no. Because there is a shift, 100%. There is a shift of it as well. Society has created that thing. Oh, bodybuilding is just steroids. It's far from the truth, because like the most important thing is like your nutrition. Your nutrition needs to be dialed in. Like you can use as much steroids as you want. Your nutrition's in the toilet. Your training's up to nonsense, and your recovery is not in a good place. The steroids are not going to help you at all. And then when it comes to that, like I say, the stigma of bodybuilding and steroids, it's both bodybuilders' fault. That's what the image that was created, as well as it's actually a general gym goer's fault as well, because being a coach, getting into the coaching scene, a lot more people who are not even competing or using steroids. Like for me, abusing steroids is just blindly using PEDs without the knowledge of what's happening inside your body, like without doing your homework, without doing your blood work. That's like you just continue using it. You're not coming off. You just continue running cycles. You're just running compounds after compounds after compounds. That's abuse. It's like alcohol. Same thing. Like people who know they have alcohol problem, and they just continue using, continue drinking. People, the same thing. Basically comes down to like that feel good feeling. That's where people get caught up, is like because you enhanced, yes, you feel stronger in the gym, your recovery is a lot better, so they get high on that feeling.
Yeah
They don't want to let go of that. So that's like when it comes to actually knowing what you're doing, what's doing what, and then being educated around it. And that's where, like I said, there's a shift coming. There's a shift that's happened already. There's loads of information out there, and people are getting educated. There's a lot more proper education about the stuff. Back then, if we look back, say 10, 15, 20 years ago, all there was just forums and magazines, just people throwing out random cycles, random compounds. Oh, this does this does that. Like they'll say, for example, I don't want to use names of PEDs now, but they'll say, oh, this is for bulking, this is for cutting. No, that's not what it does. Like there's a deeper root to it. What causes it to do that? What mechanism is it taking through your body? What pathways is it working through to that?
One of the things that I respect so much about the bodybuilding space, if done right, is that I think it's the one sport where the athlete really educates themselves deeply about what's actually going on in their body. Like when I've spoken to bodybuilders, they really deeply understand hormones. They really understand, like you said, the pathways of what's being activated. Unlike other sports spaces, especially I can speak from the fighting space, where like most of the time the athletes have no clue what's happening in their body, let alone really understand nutrition. But there's almost, I suppose, because there's real danger in, if you are using performance enhancement drugs, if you're using them and you don't know how to use them correctly, that you can do some serious damage. So would you say that that statement is correct? Like, are for the most part bodybuilders pretty educated, or have you seen that, the other side?
There's a 50-50. There are still guys out there that you speak to them and they're like, "Hey, when last have you done your blood work?" And they're like, "I don't do blood work." I'm like, "You should be checking your blood work. You should be doing that." That's where I was going to, is like, that's where the shift's happening.
Mm.
There's, I would say, like I say, there's a 50-50. I can only say there's 50-50. It might be more people that's actually doing it now, but also there's a lot more coaches out there now that's pushing that. And you have to get your blood work done before we do any of these things. Uh, and that's where, like I say, it's even like in the general population, like myself being a coach, not only just a bodybuilding coach, like I do coach lifestyle clients as well, and just general gym goers as well. I have to fight with general gym goers more about getting off of it than I'd have to do with bodybuilders. So I would say bodybuilders nowadays, like, they, before they're getting into it, they're understanding what the risks are, because there are risks, lots of risks that you need to either accept and then obviously decide how far you're willing to take this risk to.
What are some of those risks?
Yeah, well, look, obviously, number one thing for males, fertility can be a thing. But even for females, fertility is the number one thing that it can be an issue. Then there's also neurological issues that can happen. You could get damaged, like brain damaged. Some compounds can do that. Then there's like your liver, your heart, your kidneys, all your organs. They're gonna be at risk, or you're gonna be putting strain on them. So that's why it's a calculated decision on what you're gonna do, and then obviously that's why it's important to do your blood work, get those things done, and
So those are
then
essentially
from there, see if
those are essentially going to be markers that are going to tell you if things are going too far out of balance, and then what you should be maybe fixing or dialing back on. Is that what you're saying?
100%, 100%, because like everybody's different. Everybody has different genetics, so you might have something that you bringing through your genetics that's maybe, for instance, you have in your family your family has heart conditions, or there's diabetes in your family, or there's maybe someone in your family has asthma, something like that. And so those things can be like a genetic thing, or it might be, it might not be, but that's where only checking on the inside is gonna really help you see where you are. So that's why it's important to have those markers checked before you're gonna jump onto that side of performance enhancing.
And so would your advice, because you've mentioned now, obviously the bodybuilding space being one that is 50-50, some are taking performance enhancement, some aren't, but you're saying that what you really see is a struggle in the kind of lifestyle general population space where people are really wanting to be on these things. Do you think that there's a time and place for, let's just say, steroids in the general population space, or would you say that that is only something that should be reserved for somebody that wants to be a professional athlete in the
Just to go
bodybuilding
back to what
space?
you said, just to go back to what you said about 50-50, it's not in bodybuilding. It's either there's natural bodybuilding or you're on PEDs. I'm 50-50 about there's 50-50 people that's actually looking after themselves and doing the things properly, and 50% that's abusing the stuff and just using things blindly. Then yes, like in general population, I wouldn't think there's any space for performance enhancing, to be honest with you. Completely honest with you. I don't think it's something that's needed. It's a choice at the end of the day. Like I said, it's understanding the risks and so on. Then the only thing I would say in general population is maybe hormone replacement therapy. That's something that's big now. Also, you get a lot of HRT clinics opening up and so forth. That is like the only performance enhancing route. I would say also that's acceptable for the general population is when you're going to be doing DRT doses of testosterone. That's the only place I would say that it has in the general population.
And that's really valid. So then just jumping back to this difference that you mentioned about, your natural bodybuilders versus enhanced bodybuilding, is that a space that's divided in the sense of you either entering a natural competition or you're entering an enhanced competition, so your athletes are kept separate? Or would you find athletes who are choosing to be natural competing alongside enhanced athletes?
Yes, they are different. They are different shows for that. You do get natural federations. where it's just natural bodybuilding and they do testing and so forth. This year was the first year that the NPC has launched. Launched the natural competitions. They were set to have 3, but I think they just combined it all into one. I don't think they had that much entries. When it comes to bodybuilding, people want to see something special. Like at the natural point, you do get some really good athletes. I mean, genetics can take you very far, and that's the first thing is you need to cap out your natural genetics first before you're gonna go to that route. But we can touch on that later on. But they are different federations, and they are definitely natural athletes standing among enhanced athletes, especially when it comes to the female divisions. Especially like the bikini. There's a new category now called fit model. Yeah. So I think those two are the categories that you most likely find natural athletes in. And then at the entry level in the men's side, you'll probably find them in the juniors, like natural athletes. But even these days at juniors they're using the stuff. Like it's ridiculous, to be honest with you, but you do get a couple of them that actually push the natural genetics as far as they can go. So yeah, you do find them, but you find them in the men's physique, in the men's categories, a bit in classic physique, classic bodybuilding, and then yeah, juniors, and then juniors, because you get juniors in each of those divisions as well.
It's like you were saying, people are looking for a bit of a spectacle or something, something special, which is why there's this leaning towards enhancement. So you mentioned natural genetics and tapping out, or capping out, so to speak, your natural genetics. And I wanted to chat a little bit deeper about that, but also speak about kind of what are the things that a natural athlete, whether it be a bodybuilder or general population, somebody that's really wanting to take their fitness and their muscle growth to the next level. What are the core principles in terms of making sure that you are doing everything that you can? Is it supplementation? There's a lot of talk these days about using peptides. You obviously touched on HRT. Is it nutrition? One of the things that I get told or asked a lot about is, people want shakes. They want diet shakes or protein shakes, and people tend to look at that more than actual food sometimes. So where's your stance on all of these elements? How do they all come together?
So on a natural point, but this is like I said in the beginning, even for enhanced athletes, your nutrition, your training, and your recovery is going to be the base of everything. So those things for a natural athlete is even more important. How dialed in you are into your nutrition, your training needs to be on point, and your recovery needs to be 100% on point. Supplementations are exactly what the name is. It's a supplement. It's not there to replace whole foods. Protein shakes and stuff like that is there to get in extra protein if you can't get them from foods. If you really can't eat any more chicken, fish, any of those eggs, if you can't eat any more of those in your diet anymore, then that's when shakes come in. Or if you really need quick source of protein, like for example, before workouts, a whey protein can come into play. Other supplements like amino acids and stuff like that, yes, they have place because the amino acids are the essential blocks, or it's the main building blocks of protein. But if you're getting enough protein in, it's not 100% necessary to have amino acids. But with amino acids come electrolytes. They are electrolytes, potassium, your sodium. So it can be a benefit for you, especially during your workouts or especially during your cardio. Then creatine. This is a topic that has gone wild over the past 2 years or so. A lot more studies about it, and that's number one. That's a supplement I think everybody should be using, because there's so much benefits to it. Even though your body does produce creatine as well, and you can get it from your food sources, but you get people like not everybody wants to eat beef and steak, and those are probably the main food sources that's higher in creatine. Then other supplements that people go crazy about, pre-workouts, all about it's caffeine. It's caffeine. Like if you need an extra boost, by all means, yes. But then you get these non-stim pre-workouts like vasodilations, and that's important for blood flow. So if you're getting more blood flow into the muscle areas, you're gonna be able to stimulate the muscle better, and that's gonna definitely help you hold on to the muscle tissue, especially when dieting. For me, look, this is something that I could be wrong about. I'm not 100% sure. Like, as soon as you start touching peptides or anything that's other than off the shelf, I don't think you're natural anymore. People will probably argue with me about this, but I'm not saying yes, it makes you unnatural and stuff, but to me, it's if you're putting synthetic hormones into your body or you're manipulating your body's natural production, then with exogenous stuff, then it's enhanced in my opinion. So like with peptides and stuff, because it's another topic now, because it's something also it's widely on the boom now, but
Trending. Yeah.
not a lot of this stuff has a lot of studies on them, even though there's a lot of anecdotal evidence, like people are experiencing some good stuff about on peptides. And me myself, I can speak on that, my experience on it. Or I can only speak on my own experience, and as a athlete myself and as a coach as well, seeing like giving out protocols to my athletes on peptides and seeing the response on it.
So when we talk about the peptide space, because you mentioned creatine, which is absolutely trending, like I can't open my phone without seeing somebody talking about the benefits of creatine. That's great. But like you said, it's very widely studied. When we talk about peptides, it's something that is still like people aren't 100% sure about. And there's peptides that have been around for a little bit longer, your BPCs and your TB500, those ones. And then there's other peptides that are kind of jumping up now that's sounding quite new. But you mentioned that you've used them in yourself and that you've put protocols for your athletes on them. Are there any peptides that you have seen in your personal experience that actually, the bang is worth the buck? Or is your advice to rather stay clear of peptides completely?
I can speak about the ones I've used. You mentioned them, the BPC 157 and the TB500. I've used them myself. I've torn my pick. The recovery has been insane. Like as soon as I tore my pick, I started immediately that same day with the protocol PPC and the TB500. And on the day of it, on the day of the tear, there wasn't any scarring, but I could see there was inflammation. It was red. I could feel the inflammation was there. The bluing started coming after the second day. It was blue for 2 days, and then the next week it was gone. It was completely gone. The only time I could get the ultrasound was the week after the tear. Was the earliest one I could get. So by the time I went for the scan, all the inflammation was gone. There was just a little bit of inflammation left over, but the bluing was gone. The lady that was doing the scan, she was like, where did you tear this pic? What happened? And then I explained to her, and she's like, okay, but there's nothing here. But then when she did the scan, it's like, okay, there's a little bit of inflammation here. So they found nothing. Thankfully on my side, there was nothing off my tendon.
That's great.
There was a little bit of inflammation and fluid on the they could see it on the scan. And then they said, no, the next best thing is obviously to do an MRI to see if it's a muscle belly, if it's torn on the muscle belly and so on, if anything's ruptured on there. But yeah, like from then I'm still using the BPC 157 and the TB500 at the moment now. I was using a higher dosage in the beginning to speed up the recovery and promote that regeneration of muscle tissue. It's not 100% back there yet, but like I think that my ruptures was a little bit deeper. I think it was about 3 centimeters, which is quite big. Like my experience, I can only say like for me the turnaround, the time I could start my rehab was immediately a week after I got the scan. I got the scan the Tuesday. Thursday I started my rehab. I went to the bio and said we can start with rehab immediately because I could move. There was
That's
nothing.
amazing. So definitely a peptide in terms of helping with speeding up recovery after a serious injury. That's definitely something that should be on the list of things to consider. Obviously, with somebody that is guiding you with a protocol.
Yes, 100%. And then like I think you're gonna reach the most out of it is when you actually do, like if you injure yourself and you're gonna use it for injuries, actually then have a proper rehab program to go with it and do the rehab properly. But then again, also you have to eat 100%. Like I never stopped my diet. I never stopped eating properly, and like my diet was still on point. So I would say all of those things still tied in. I was still eating well, and I was training. I could train everything else besides I couldn't train my chest or my shoulders at that time, I was still training everything else I could train, and my eating and everything else was still in place. So I would
And I
say
think
that definitely played a role as well.
And I think that is the one thing that I keep kind of getting. That's kind of the message that keeps coming through chatting to you today is, and something that bodybuilders that I've met, because they are so regimented with their diet, not all of them, but the successful ones, it's something that other athletes and general population don't always get right, is that if there's an injury and you're on the couch for a while, you're eating junk. Other athletes, as well as general pop, do definitely struggle a little bit more with kind of staying in the course when it comes to the diet. So I feel like I could talk to you forever, but we're running out of time fast. I want to just finish up with kind of a parting advice from your side in terms of, if somebody came to you, general pop or bodybuilder, potential bodybuilder, and they wanted to shift their body and their mindset for long-term health and performance, not necessarily just for aesthetics, what would be the kind of the protocol or the advice that you would give to them to get them started? I know you've mentioned a lot of different things, but if you were to give somebody 3 to 5 things to really focus on in terms of up-leveling their aesthetics as well as their fitness, what would those be?
Number one, I would say is get a coach, get a knowledgeable coach that's gonna buy into your journey. So you have somebody in your corner who's gonna be backing you in the rough days, in the good days, and all. Number one thing, this could probably be the header, is your habits. Work on your habits. Everything's not gonna serve you in the long-term purposes. Eliminate them. Those are going to be the important thing. And when I say your habits, that's what I say. I think this could be a header. Your habits with food, like make sure you're getting some good nutrition. Eat your fruits, eat your veggies. Carbs are not the enemy. Just pick your carbs nicely, and that's why I have a coach so that they can manage the amount of carbs you need. Because carbs is the energy that you need to perform. Then your recovery is another big thing. I don't think people spend enough time recovering, or they underrate recovery so much. Make sure you when it comes to recovery, you can say, get your massages done, and now there's a lot of things that people are doing, like ice baths, your saunas. Make sure your sleep is on point. That's another big thing, is making sure you're getting your sleep habits correct. Make sure you're getting that 6 to 8 hours. I would say 6 hours minimum, but definitely 6 to 8 hours to make sure that your body recovers completely. Show up on every day, like no matter how hard it gets, you're showing up for yourself, and you're preparing, like you mentioned, you're thinking long term. Yes, it's nice to set short term goals in between, which is something I recommend as well, is have these small stints, but that's also where having someone in your corner, like having a coach to help you map out these things, is going to be important for you. And then, just get the routine going. So that's why I said the first thing is make sure your habits are in place. So those are my key takeaways for everybody.
Those are very valid and so simple. And I think ultimately we tend to, we overcomplicate things because the simplicity of doing the same thing every day sounds actually quite boring. But at the same time, that's what actually yields the results. So, Achmat, thank you so much for being with me today. I've really, really enjoyed this podcast, and I look forward to doing it again.
Thank you for having me on, and I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to coming on again. I'll be 100% keen for another one if you have me again.
The Primal Wellness Podcast.